Dash IO is going to be the next S tier hero in Flesh and Blood, and in this video we will explain why. So Dash IO is one of the new Mechanologist heroes from Bright Lights. Her hero ability reads, you may look at the top card of your deck at any time, and once per turn you may play a Mechanologist item with cost 0 or 1 from the top of your deck as though it were an instant. It costs an additional resource to play, along with having 36 health. And thank fuck she has 36 health, because this might actually be the strongest hero ability in the entire game right now. And there's actually a lot to cover with this ability, so let's get right into it. So first off, if you play a card off of the top of the deck, you essentially had 5 intellect that turn, which is already strong enough to be a hero ability by itself. Second, this card comes in at instant speed, which is not only relevant to be able to attack react with cards like Boom Grenade and Penetration Script, but also because if you crank them, you'll net gain action points, which will always bare minimum translate to 2 damage from our weapon, but can also allow for double to triple item turns. And then third, knowing the top card of your deck actually solves a lot of the fatigue problems that boost decks face. So to explain, the way a boost deck gets fatigued is because that player can't control if they're going to boost over their power cards or not. When this happens, that player loses their ability to be able to push damage over the top of the opponent's full block, but just by having the ability of knowing what's on top of our deck at all times, this gives us the ability to switch our play line mid-turn in order to keep those max Vs, those high octanes or Spark of Geniuses in our deck to be able to get value from them. And this will set you up to be able to consistently kill any of these fatigue decks without having to give up 15 deck slots for it. So yeah, please do not underestimate the power of this part of the ability. But to summarize the hero ability all up into 3 quick points, we'll just say it has 5 intellect, you can gain extra action points, and you're pretty unfatigable. So it's a pretty good ability, huh? And all we have to do in order to maximize these benefits is address the drawbacks attached, with those being 1, it must be a mech item with a certain cost, either 0 or 1, and 2, it also costs an additional resource to play that card. But the thing with these drawbacks is they're actually easily fixed in deck building. We do this by simply keeping our blue count around 17 to 18 for the highest chance to draw into 1 to 2 blues per hand. This enables us to always be able to afford that extra cost for the items off the top whenever we need it, and by running 12 to 15 items in our deck, while keeping away from most of the blue and the yellow one. A big mistake I see with many of the other IO decks is they run too many items overall, along with too many blue items specifically. Too many items overall hurts our ability to block, and also loses equity with the power cards in our deck that want us to boost multiple times per turn in order to get maximum value out of them. And when these items are also blue, this means you will most often be pitching them to the bottom of our deck, which dilutes our threat count later in the game, which is actually the real reason that most IO players think that she's weak to fatigue, when really it's just because you have too many items and too many blue items at that. So for the items I landed on 6 Boom Grenades, which are pretty much the mech premeditates, 3 Penetration Scripts, which are mech Art of Wars, and then since we're still technically playing Dash, we get to run the specializations of 3 Teklo Cores and 3 Spark of Geniuses, which are both honestly up there as some of the strongest cards in the game, period. And then I also have a couple one-off items in my sideboard to be able to search for them with my Sparks in certain matchups. But that's it for the items, let's go over the rest of the deck now. So this deck is built around your 4 main power cards, those being High Octane, Max V, Penetration Script, and Spark of Genius. High Octane and Max V for the 20 to 30 damage payoff turns. Penetration Script is another payoff card for high damage turns, but also doubles up with its ability to be used for your setup turns as well. And then Spark is by far your best setup card, being a tutor for any item that you see fit, that also replaces itself to make sure you maintain an arsenal as well. And as you probably noticed, all 4 of these cards are their best when you pair them with multiple boost cards. So with that in mind, I filled my deck with 39 boost cards to preserve the consistency of these 4 power cards. Now, the main play pattern you want to be doing into all of your matchups pretty much is you want to have a setup turn, developing an item or 2, and even an arsenal. And then in the next turn, you want to say no blocks and just have your payoff turn with any of your power cards. These turns will strip your opponent's hand, allowing you to then have your setup turn into your power turn again. Rinse and repeat that until you win, and boom, now you're Michael Hamilton. So now we'll quickly go over the sideboard. And like I said, I don't think you need to run a full pistol package to beat fatigue. So instead I use my sideboard for a couple one-off items in Backup Protocol red and blue, and Polarity Reversal Script as hedges for fatigue decks, TikTok Clock for mech decks and wizards, and Signal Jammer for Kano specifically. Then for the rest of the side I have Pulse Wave for the aggro decks that I want to disrupt while I boost, Throttle as extra poppers or just as extra boost when I want them for fatigue, and Magnetic Shockwave for the ninjas, rangers, and when I want to bring in extra boosts, I'll always bring in these extra blues as well. But that's it for the deck tech. Now let's get into the game. So here we're up against a Dromai and they put us first. So off the bat, we're already getting value from our hero ability here when I see a high octane on top. And I'm actually going to consciously boost it away because I don't have any counters on my weapon yet. I'd like to up my chances into drawing a max or a spark instead. So we play the Throttle for 4, boosting the high octane away. Opponent cracks their Seekers for an Ash and blocks with an E-Strike. Next card is a blue boost, and I do consider boosting that too, but no real reason to. So just Arsenal with a Pulse Wave and pass. Over on their turn, they play out a Chromai and swing in for 3. I know they're on the aggro version of Dromai because of the Snapdragon Scalers, so no blocks, take 3 down to 33. They then follow up with a Dust Up. I'm actually happy to give my equipment here because the early Ash Wings can easily get like 10 points of value throughout the game. So block that with my crown and my chest piece. I'm going to sink the extra blue in my hand, drawing into the spark we know about, and then they actually end off on a Kyloria. So damn, kind of sucks, but I'm not blocking 4. Take 4 down to 29. Then they Arsenal the card they drew, pass to us. Over on ours, gonna lead off with the high octane, drawing into the dive through that we know about. Then we swing in with the 0 to 60 at Kyloria. Next we swing the dive through at face for 4, gaining another action point. The opponent snap takes 4 down to 36, and then we're just looking for an item off the opt. So bottom the red 0 and we find a Teklo Core on top. So it's a little awkward here because I wanted to use the last floating for the Pulse Wave to equal X, but I'm not going to complain. Just play my free Teklo Core off the top, which is insane. Then we follow up with Spark for 0, and here I actually think for a little bit, and I actually decide to grab a Boom Grenade here because there's a big chance I would actually waste the second Teklo Core's resources on my next turn. So I just grab the grenade instead, draw into a blue, swing with the Pulse Wave for 4. They take that down to 28 thanks to the grenade. Then we have 3 action points but only 2 counters on Symbiosis, so use one of the counters to kill Chromai, then shoot at Dromai for 2. They take it down to 26. So all up we dealt 14, set up a Teklo Core, and cleared 2 powerful dragons all in one turn. Pretty fucking good. But we pass it to them. Over on theirs, they have a 5-card hand here, and they lead off with a Burn Them All into a Blaze Headlong for 4. Like I said before, I'm not blocking, so take 4 down to 25. Then they follow up with Yenderai for 3. Don't really care. Take that as well, down to 21. Then they just pass to us. And so, like I said in the deck tech, after you have a power turn, you really just want to have a setup turn afterwards. But here our hand is a little bit awkward. I actually ended up deciding to crank the red Boom Grenade and swinging in with the Zipper for 5, boosting. I was expecting to pull some cards out of them here, but they must have expected me to have more boosts in hand or something like that because they took that shit on their chin like a Giga Chad. So down to 17 for them, and then I just set up this penetration script, Arsenal is blue boom, and then pass to them. So again, they have a 5-card hand, they lead off with a Sweeping Blow for 3, go again. I really want to get maximum value out of my penetration script, so I'm probably not going to be blocking anything on this whole turn unless I absolutely have to. So with that, take 3 down to 18. They follow up with a Flame Scale activation into Asvalai, then swing in with Yenderai for 3, and then here, even though I know I can pop it, I'm still gonna greet it. So we take that down to 14, we take another 3 from the Asvalai down to 11, and then we actually get punished a little bit when they end off on CNC. So it sucks, but I'm not blocking that either. Take 6 down to 5, lose the boom from Arsenal, they pass to us. So over to us. Gonna be a big turn with this script. Lead off with 0 for 5 boosting, and then it shows us another penetration script on top, which is massive. Opponent says no blocks, and then we flash in the penetration script from the top, crank it for an extra action point, so they actually take 5 down to 11. Next, I pitch my blue to Foundry Heart and swing in Twin Drive for 7, double boosting for heist value. They just block with their chest for 2, taking 5 down to 6. Then I pop my gauntlets and swing in with Throttle for 10, go again. Opponent is a little bit stuck here trying to figure out the correct blocks, and they landed on blocking for 5 with the chest and 2 Flame Call Awakenings, taking 5 down to 1. But now, thanks to the crank, I swing in with my weapon for 2. They respond with a Sigil, going back up to 4, but then back down to 2. Again, I swing for 2 to take the last card out of their hands, and then I pop the Achilles for 1 more action point to shoot them 1 more time for lethal. GG's. And I don't know, this is literally how most of my games go with this deck. If the opponent doesn't block, we win the race. If the opponent does block, then I can easily have a setup turn and then blast over their block in the next turn. And all of this, and I still feel like there's plenty more room for this deck list to grow. But yeah, that's it for the video. Deck list in the description like always. Thank you for watching to the end, and we out. Peace.